Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Searcy. In this video I want to share with you a few thoughts specifically regarding the foundations of interpersonal communication. When we look at defining interpersonal communication, I think really it comes down and boils down to two words, doesn't it? Inter, between, personal, people. Interpersonal. Now, we might look at it with respect to numbers, right? Intrapersonal communication being communication we have with one individual, namely ourselves. Interpersonal communication might be between two people, but really we're talking about being able to communicate with people that we recognize as being unique individuals in front of us. And we can distinguish that individual, say, from having so many people here that it becomes more of a group, and I'm addressing a whole number of people as a group, the whole, rather than a single individual. So when we talk about interpersonal communication, we're talking about communication between people. Features of interpersonal communication include the fact that communication is selective, it's systemic, and those systems include various types of noise, especially when we start looking at what blocks communication. What might actually stop me from listening to a message and fully receiving a message that you might be sending? Well, first one might be physiological noise. Physiologically, is it possible for me to not be completely receptive to a message? I might be deaf. That would be one physiological permanent position. I might be blind, or even more temporarily, I might be suffering from allergies, have a cold, and not be able to be physically present. So physical noise. This would be like the noise that happens in the room, the construction outside that blocks me from being able to hear, for example, everything that is being said to me and relayed to me in the message. Psychological noise might very well be the fact that you've got a math test the next hour after this presentation. And while you're listening to me, you're also at the same time running math formulas through your head. So you may not be paying full attention here either. Psychological noise. Semantic noise. Problems with dialect or accent or technical jargon from various disciplines and professions, etc. Environmental noise, when the weather or when the color of the room and things like this might be distracting. And then also we might say emotional noise. Related to psychological noise in that perhaps somebody just broke up with you, you found out somebody has passed on, or something very tragic has happened, and you're really focused on the emotion, anger or fear or sadness or grief, and as such what we're talking about may not seem important, and so you're not fully present to be completely receptive to the message. So these are the kinds of noise that might affect the message that we need to pay attention to. Interpersonal communication is also very individual. Remember, meanings lie within people, not within words. We might call this a pen. Will everyone call it a pen? No, because the words changed, maybe based on the language. There is no intrinsic connection between the word pen and this item right here. If, for example, we wanted to all call this a widget, it would now be called a widget. So what we're suggesting is that it's a very arbitrary, isn't it? Pardon me. And so it's also very processual, meaning, think about this for a moment. Every conversation you have with someone is actually a continuation of every conversation you've ever had with someone. Every conversation you have with someone is a continuation of every conversation you've ever had with someone. That includes impressions of character, situations that have happened, inside jokes, because we can refer to something that nobody else knows. Interpersonal communication is also transactional. It's kind of I give, you give, we receive. It's kind of back and forth simultaneously, feedback and the reliance of a message. It requires personal knowledge. And remember, of course, if every conversation we have with someone is actually a continuance of every conversation we've ever had with someone, personal knowledge becomes heavy into play here. Meaning creating. Meaning lies within people, not within words. Meaning lies within people, not within words. And that's something that we have to pay very, very close attention to. Okay, so when we're looking at communication, we're looking at the transactional model, essentially, which best describes what happens in interpersonal communication. Through all this noise, I'm presenting to you, you're presenting to me, feedback comes back and forth. It's all simultaneously over time. The more we get to know each other, the greater our shared knowledge and experience, and so the more intimate our communication might become. The likelihood of meeting our needs depends on our ability to participate effectively in a diverse world. Communication is so vital and important that we don't get our needs met either individually or as a society unless we've mastered the art of communication, being able to communicate with each other and being able to then respond to that communication as we go. So the principles of communication. Number one, we cannot not communicate. We're always communicating. Even if once we're known, even our absence communicates something. Interpersonal communication is not irreversible. There's no reboot, reset button when it comes to actual interaction with people. We have memories. Every communication we have with someone is a continuance of every communication we've ever had with someone. Interpersonal communication involves ethical choices. How we treat people, whether or not we choose to deceive, whether or not we choose to lie, what we choose to actually reveal and tell. People construct meanings in interpersonal communication. Remember, meaning lies within people, not within words. Meta-communication affects meaning. Meta-communication. So when I say, do you know when this happened yesterday and I said this or I winked this way, I actually meant? Well, that affects the actual meaning as well. So meta-communication affects meaning. Interpersonal communication develops and sustains relationships. We don't have relationships unless we communicate. It just doesn't happen. Interpersonal communication is not a panacea. It's not a cure-all, end-all solution for everything. An awful lot of things, but not everything. And interpersonal communication, effectiveness can be learned. You wouldn't be looking at videos like this. You wouldn't be taking courses. You wouldn't be actually studying interpersonal communication at all if you didn't actually believe you could learn to become better skilled at interpersonal communication. And that, in essence, is why we're here and what we do and why we do what we do. Interpersonal communication. Communication matters, and you can learn to be more effective at it. I'm Mike Searcy. Ask me questions as we go. See you in the next video.